So, hello everyone. Today we have Manik Singh with us. I'll just give you a little idea about Manik. Manik is a mechanical engineer and a UI UX designer. Manik has worked extensively with startups in various stages of their product catering to UX. He also runs a series of workshops called Everyone Can Design, wherein design is taught hands-on and in a simple manner for everyone to understand and grasp the most important fundamentals. And this is what the today's workshop is going to be about. So I hope like you all make the most of it. And let's hear it from Manik about his experiences and what he's going to talk, like the inputs that he's going to give today.
Thank you for the very kind introduction. And that was something I was also about to say, that I come from a background which is not really a completely right down into a bachelor's in architect degree and then making it from there. So I come from a background which is from engineering and then getting into product design and then just keeping on the journey to learn different parts and applications of design. And I think it's due to that that factor that I'm able to take such workshops as well, where I can sort of integrate these things for people. So what we're going to start with is it's a series called Everyone Can Design, and it is designed specifically for anyone who wants to get an introduction to design, wants to have an insight into how a designer thinks, works, and it has nothing to do with what you've studied so far, which stream of design you're coming from, or even if you're not a designer, doesn't matter. And that's the good part about it, that design is like that. It is not like anything technical, which is engineering or architecture when you think about architecture in whole. So today we are going to explore spaces with that approach, and we will start with a central theme to our workshop, and we're going to explore that as we go in depth from one slide to another, right? So one thing that really drives me, I want to tell you about Everyone Can Design as a workshop theme is the creativity which flows in everyone and each one of us. I really look forward to that when we are creating here. So that is also the reason I was asking to sort of get your cameras on so we can see each other, and we can look at what someone is doing when we are doing the activity especially. Another thing, there is a link that I'm going to share with you. We are going to use that doc page to record everyone's workshop outcomes, so that we can have it on one document and people can look into each other's concepts. Okay, so that is going to be very important, so please don't miss that. Just a second, I'm going to share that with you on the chat with everyone. So okay. So guys, this is the link that I've sent to everyone just now, and you can also use it to post your queries when we're in the middle of the presentation, and we'll take those queries in between at some stages. So everyone can see the screen, the first screen.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, well, I think a lot of workshops have happened in the last few days, and people would have gone through this, design process. And usually, you see design process theme starts with a research tab, but I think that's not really it. Usually, when you're looking into design and you're doing a project, there is an opportunity, there's a motive, or there's a need that targets the whole process. So the starting point is usually a perception about what we think about something when we observe something. And from there, you start research and the whole process that goes on. It's a usual process that we call research, synthesis, ideation, conceptualization, mock-ups, and prototyping, and then feedback, and then finally launching it. And what's important is as we move on and as we sort of you know uh, streamline our approach, our process changes. For example, this blue square in front, I was not putting that in front in a lot of my previous presentations because I did not really realize that that's where I'm starting the process, or that's where the process or a project starts. But now, as I've grown into the process, I realize that it's not just popping right out of a research thing. So uh, that is something you should also look at evolving into as your own process. What you observe, you should not neglect it at any point. It's not that there is a guideline for designing. Sure, there are guidelines and which keep changing because design is like that. So you're also able to bring that next change in terms of whichever guidelines are present today. So guidelines are not the benchmark for you, and they should not be. And how is that possible? I think that is possible through our central theme of what we're going to do today. So our theme is going to be experience. I come from a background of UX. I've done product, and product inherently has a lot of UX. It's not taught in the name of UX, but then yeah, you actually get to learn a lot from other people and share their experiences while doing research, while prototyping, while validating that with people. And user experience is a very interesting topic, and it expands from in every creative field. Even if you're not in a creative field, UX is still around you and mostly within a process that you're doing. So my my motivation and I'm really intrigued by architecture and spaces, and that is also because of UX, because I feel there is a certain way and certain depth to architecture which can change how people stay in their homes, stay in their offices, and spaces have the potential to manipulate that, or not just manipulate, uplift that experience uh, of our different segments of life. And what makes it, what brings everything together in design field, I feel that is experiences. If you start designing for experiences, you are able to give your thought process a very vast diversity, and you can sort of optimize it and make it very tailor made for for every other need that it might arise in your project. And most of the project, if you look at spaces and especially architecture spaces, museums, public utilities, public spaces, the project doesn't just have architecture, that has product, it has graphics, and there's no one thing which you have to look into. So there's an overall environment that you're creating. So I think being a creator brings a lot of responsibility on your hands. So today the experience that we're going to mostly talk about is going to be this, specifically the human experience, because that's what we know the best. And how do we form a human experience? What does it consist of? How do we break it down, or how do we think around it? So we're going to do that today. We're going to look at some examples first. And I'm just going to take you through them, and we'll discuss them after this. So this is a room, basically a white room constructed as an experiment by CIA some time back, and they put in people for testing how do they behave in such an environment. And to top it all, they also had them wear shoes, they had them wear gloves. Um, so the results were pretty obvious and shocking to some. Well, the results were people did not really enjoy being in this white room for a long time. And in 24 hours, they showed signs of, you know, losing consciousness. And within 48 hours, they were hallucinating. So what really happened? What can go wrong sitting in a white room, if you would wonder? And it was air conditioned. There was no problem with air conditioning that they would grasp for air. So here's an example of how this is basically a facility for rehab, a healthcare center, and these are they're called Maggie healthcare centers. The three pictures on the left, the three left pictures, is all one center in Manchester. The other one is probably in UK, and they're different designer. One is Stephen Bilfon, and the other is Thomas Heatherwick. So if you see, they have sort of tried to merge the boundaries between a building and our environment, and it's very intentional. It's not just a design. It's very intentional that they want people to be able to smell the air outside. They want to what they want them to hear sounds which are happening outside the environment. They want to bring down the walls between the outside environment and the house or the walls. And it's pretty much in line with designing of a space station as well. And something that they found during research was that astronauts and who were coming back, they were questioned as to what was that they missed after the family. And uh, they said the smell of air. And that's something which, well, the technicians will not think, the engineers will not think, because that's not a technical requirement. But that's something that the designer has to think. And thus they had a concept for creating a window in the space station, which was implemented later on in about 2010, I think. So before that, the space station did not really have a big window. It would have been a small one, but they then integrated a big window from which they could see the Earth, and that attachment factor could be there for the astronauts. So this is one example of a healthcare center where they have tried to merge the boundaries between buildings and walls, right? Uh, this is about a walk in a forest. So studies show that a walk in forest, about 20 minutes walk in forest, it shows significant activity in your brain. And what is this activity? This activity looks something like this, right? People who are sitting probably in a classroom, and then after a 20-minute walk, what happens and what kind of activity happens. So the brain is very simulated looking at a changing scenario. So we know that when the environment is changing outside, our brain is very simulated, and it is most simulated in natural environments, which they have also found, or environments which are simulated in VR, like that. And that is one of the reasons why VR is so addictive, because it sort of brings the same pattern out in the brain. So you see, the experience that we talk about, and when we are designing for people, we want people to be stimulated, but still in a very natural way. We don't want them to be hooked on to um, the games as such. So just a second. So this is an example with the office. We were looking at nature and the effect of it in a 20 minutes time frame. The same can be observed if someone is walking through the city. You will they now People can now analyze as to how the brain is acting or reacting to certain things. And suppose you meet someone interesting, you meet an old friend on the way, the brain will spike suddenly towards a level of excitement, and you will see the redness, reaching out to the brain spots. And that is something people enjoy. Simulation of the brain is what everything is designed for. And that also is, we've already seen that, kids getting addicted to screens, and that is why experts are uh, they're very cautious about handing down screens to children, because they don't know, the brains already control a lot of our activities subconsciously. And if we just get be slaves to these the devices early on in age, it is very difficult to get over, form new habits, get over the bad ones, or something. If you want to really get out of them, it becomes very difficult because of this very factor. So, what is an experience, and how does it change? Well, this is another example of this is the Apple campus, right? And some of you might recognize it. So the building has a lot of things, design things integrated in it, and one of them is this thin line between the outside and the building. They have used huge glasses. They've used vent systems which actually allow air to come inside. And you can see this little innovation can is able to make sure that people feel the way it is outside, and they're not just packed into the office. um, you will also find evidence on end reports, or there are studies as well on how cubicles are not the preferred way anymore for office work and innovation especially. And because, well, there are a lot of limitations in it, and they're like very technical things, and people don't really enjoy it. That does not simulate their minds, and you will see the efficiency go down. Even if someone is sitting for a long number of hours, the efficiency goes down. And those are the kind of factors which you would consider while designing an office, and or even a space for yourself at a home when you want to work from home. So you want to be at a place where it is calm, and you have your space, uh, and it should be ventilated. There should be enough airflow happening, and all those factors would be really helpful for making a workplace work for you. Well, this design is another Thomas Heatherwick designs. This is a university's design, and this is this is an old design which was completed in 2015, if I'm not wrong. And I got to know about it when it was probably still in making, 2012, 13. Uh, it was a talk by Thomas Heatherwick, and he was taking us through, what they were going through when they designed the building. And the building is designed for interaction, and the building is designed for a very modular approach. The classes and halls are manipulated with uh, I mean, they can make it big, small, and there are small. You can have a very intimate sessions with a very small team, and you can have a full classroom um, session, in the same space basically. And one more thing about this space is that there are no corners anywhere. So if you see, the outer form is definitely very interesting, but inside, um, they made sure that they did not, or they avoided any corner whatsoever in the whole building. And that is an amazing feat. But that is also a way to make it playful. So even the hall that you see, it's on the right side picture. It's at a very modest distance that you can actually talk to one another. And they've also designed it in a way that the lower uh, floors are visible from the upper floors, and does it is not creating that isolation that you might have seen in malls usually. So it is very connected in that way, and they've done their small bits to keep it that way, right? So we have I don't know how many of you might have seen this movie. It's called Founder. It's basically the story of the McDonald brothers and the story of McDonald's. So when we are designing any space, service, etc., you will see how it comes together and how they work towards making it come together for their McDonald's delivery system. This is called the speedy delivery system. So the McDonald's burger that you get in 30 seconds or so, I think you should see how it started. Sorry.
And you were going to love how we did it, Dick. You got to tell him.
Tennis court.
Okay. He brings me out to this tennis court and he's drawn this line, the exact dimensions of our kitchen.
Sink on the right, extruder on the left. Bagging and hood.
Hood. Okay.
Garnish. This is burger finish.
Got it.
And then this is burger slide. We could just move those. Okay. Want to mix your soft drinks?
Okay. We bring out our whole staff and we have them go through the motions, making pretend burgers and fries.
All right, Steve, anticipate that. You got to keep the tray level. Okay.
And Dick is running around with this stick, marking where all the equipment should be.
Tuck in. Tony, are you going to skip the pickles when we're really doing it?
They do it over and over, hashing it out, choreographing it like some crazy burger ballet.
Going on over there? Yes. No. No. Everybody stop. Stop. Garnish 1. Garnish 2. You've got pickles. You've got onions. It's a goddamn hamburger.
Come on, clear off.
Let's clear it off. It's time for the pink chalk. And then rip your orange. See all this open space here now? We've rearranged the fry situation. So now it's stage left, the deep fryer stage right. Again, that's great. Come on, guys.
They're pretty tied up here.
Yeah, watch it. It's the timing. It's the lazy Susan. Those are finished burgers. You can't hold it. I still think there's a third version.
What do you want to move?
I want to move everything. Back to stage left, please. I think we got it all drawn. This is better.
Is that all right?
I think so. I guess let's assume our battle station.
Okay.
Finally, after about 6 hours of this, we get it just right. It's a symphony of efficiency, not a wasted motion. Good form, Jasper. Feel good about those pickles. Catch up. Use your lazy Susan. Put your back into it, Seth. And pickles and pickle and mustard. We take the layout to a builder, custom build the kitchen to our exact specs.
Ta-da! The Speed D system is born, the world's first ever system to deliver food fast. It is totally revolutionary.
So, was everyone able to hear the sound as well? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So the sound was there, right?
Yeah, we could hear it.
Okay. I think it might have been a little here and there. So here you see, when they start, basically they make a layout as probably how they are today, and they're doing it in real and it is done for even transport designers do it for managing the space in their car, and space designers definitely do it, taping on the floor and looking at how things might look at when they're done. So two things that you can learn here is basically you can design it. The system is designed for humans to work efficiently, right? And it takes them about 6 hours to get on a third version where they're basically able to make the burger in 30 seconds, which is an amazing feat. And if you look at in that time, such a pain to get the video back. So basically in 6 hours, they are able to create the system that made the company what it is today. You're getting your, and basically coined the name fast food, I guess. And if you see this movie, you will realize that there are so many problems that were there in the system where people were eating burgers, and all the burger joints that people were waiting at burger joints, they wouldn't get their order right. And the waiting time would be anything from 30 to 40 minutes. It didn't make any sense. There were just frustration around these joints. And when McDonald's came in and they brought in their, they changed the whole business with some custom built tools which they were using in their kitchen, a layout that worked efficiently to get it right out to the customer. And all that was done by planning the space, which is usually called process optimization in industrial terms. But it is all a functional process where you want to optimize the space to work for you, right? So today we're gonna take up a challenge, and just let me. So yeah, we're just right in 40 minutes, 11:40. So we can take some questions if there are any regarding anything till now which you want to understand. Because after this, we're gonna take up some challenges and we're gonna work on something, and that is going to be our challenge. So I'll just introduce you to the challenge and take uh, take you through a process that you should follow today. And it's a very simple process, and which is basically a process that you can escalate to solve or scale up to solve the most complex problems and the easiest of the problems, right? So today we're going to create a plan for a space that can be used as vaccination center for COVID. So it's very current. I know it's very close to us right now as the whole humanity takes a plunge to fight this virus. And what I've seen is that, of course, WHO has some guidelines around this of how the space should be and what touch points or touch points should not be there. But we will approach this from a ground zero, and we will construct the plan as per the users, right? So today what we are going to do is we are going to follow a UX method, or how UX approach works for coming out to a layout and iterating that for an optimum space that can be used as a vaccination center, that would qualify as a vaccination center, which is thought and planned, right? Not just opening a room and getting people vaccinated there, no. So, why we are doing a UX approaches, because a lot of people would not understand a lot of things which are in design, and they would not want to get into it. But problem solving is not one of them. Problem solving doesn't have to be taught to people. Can be it can be experienced, or it can be implemented. So we are just covering the bit that will help us to do that, right? So I'm not very sure about the crowd we have. How many are designers, how many are non-designers, what kind of interests people have. But this is, so whenever you take it up, you don't have to worry about it, right? And just go for the challenge and just implement the flow and the route that we are going to take, the method that we're going to use. So the method is that we're going to use is what, why, where, who. And these are the 5 W's of the design process. And this is a very popular method. It has been in use since 16th century, if I'm not wrong. And then people sort of used it in very different ways. They had 6, 7, 8 words, keywords that they would use to analyze any situation. And this line that you would see from 1902 by Rudyard Kipling, I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. And what he wants to say is that everything he has learned and everything he's known is because he has been asking these questions wherever he's gone, different scenarios, and everywhere that any challenge that he has probably faced. And you can use this for writing, you can use this in journalism, you can use this in policy making, anything. And that's the beauty of it, that it's not a method of it's not a technical method, it's a human method. It addresses humans. It is not about which technology you're going to use, why, how much it's going to cost, nothing like that. It's basically reasoning: what, when, why, where, who. So how do we use a UX method? So I'm going to tell you the stages. You can just write keywords as of now on your papers, right? So the UX journey starts with studying users in the first place. So when you look at experience design, basically what is experience design and how do you define it? So our experience is formed from our 5 senses and some other social factors and financial factors and our prejudices, how we've been brought up. So all that basically comes down to how we experience life. So they're subjective. These are the subjective factors in making of an experience, and the objective factors are basically your senses. So senses, of course, everyone's senses will record in a similar fashion, but the output is never the same, right? If if 10 people are analyzing something, they have different things to say about it. So the designer's role is, especially in product design, is basically to minimize that and get one output. And in space, you have an open canvas that uh, you offer something for them to experience, and the experience can be different. It can be calm, it can be something else for different people, but you still have to work to bring it to that. You have the capability to manipulate people to be calm, and that's a very good manipulation that you can do for someone who's probably being taken to police station and someone who is probably in the hospital, right? Hospital designs are hardly calm. They're not even close to calm. It's a mess. It's a chaos. And if, in these situations, it's, I don't know. I can't even imagine how people feel about hospitals, right? So a lot of hospital and healthcare design, if you see and if you look through some recent projects by good designers, they're moving towards wellness and they're moving towards how healthcare also can have that simulation to a human mind. And that's the reason healthcare, the examples that we saw, there is a very thin line that they drew so that people's brains could be stimulated by the natural environment and they could respond to that, right? And we have already seen what happens if people are put in a white room without senses, without tactical touch, and they just lose it, and brain just loses it, and it creates hallucinations to make up for that. So now no, the brain can go to a very crazy extent to make things up for you. So most of the time we think that we are using the brain, but well, if you count the number of times you are able to use the brain versus the times the brain just reacts and we get used, you will realize that things are very different in reality. So the first part that in experience that we're going to cover is going to be the users, right? And for the rest of the part, we're going to brainstorm a little. So you can switch on your audios when, yeah, I'm going to sort of bounce.
Hmm. Hello.
Sorry, hello.
Yeah, hi. I
Yeah.
think we lost. There was some connection issue.
So what? So we were. So I was telling that we're going to use our method and we're going to answer the questions that we require for the UX process to proceed. So we're going to we are basically designing for experience of someone who's coming to get vaccinated, right? So can you answer who are we designing for? Anyone in? Guys, who are we going to design this system for? I think someone might be chatting.
You guys can unmute yourself and uh, answer or just write it in the chat box.
For all age groups who need to get vaccinated.
Okay, yeah, all age groups are there, yes. Anyone else we're designing for?
The healthcare workers who are going to be there.
Yeah, that's right. Healthcare workers are also just part of the system, yes. Imani says adults, okay. So guys, one user is our healthcare worker. Right? The space is going to be designed keeping that in mind. Healthcare workers are going to be there. Who else is going to be there? Healthcare workers means doctors, nurses, both. So other people are going to be there, or people are coming for getting vaccinated, right? Yeah, staff is also there. So now that we know that there are going to be different stakeholders in the system, so we have a POV where we can look from these people's point of view and design the system in a way that all these things can go on while vaccination goes on, right? And while we design such a space, which is something like a vaccination center, we have to think of how people are going to come in, people are going to stand, interact, etc., etc. So let's move to that now that we have counted the users, right? We already know that they are going to be about 3 to 4 kinds of users. What next? What do you think should be your next priority to think about when you're designing this space? Let's start from our users who are coming for vaccination, right? How do you want the space for them to be if someone is coming for vaccination?
To be socially distanced and more interactive.
You want it to be interactive.
Not really interactive, but a place where they can be comfortable and not scared of being in so much of crowd.
Okay, that's right. So socially distancing is what exactly? It's a guideline, right? It's something that we have to follow to basically curb the virus. So what else could be there? So currently, this process of looking into a user's, activities and what will they do, that is called a journey. And journey maps are used to look into details of everything that a user could go through. Okay, so journey maps gives us the insight of every micro detail, and sometimes it is very important that and it presents us with an opportunity that a micro solution can become cater to a bigger solution for the same activity. Like a micro solution of one activity can be used in multiple activities, and it has a bigger impact in the overall system. So what we currently are looking at is the journey, and it is very literal in the sense that how journey of a person is looked at. For example, if someone is visiting a bank, what is their journey? If someone is visiting uh, basically an ice cream parlor or anything like that, right? So you can look at the journey and then you can design very specifically for that. And the space can be designed specifically to keeping that journey in mind. If for example, McDonald's is designed in a way that people are standing in line, people are receiving the order, they have both separate lanes, and there are two counters, three counters, depending on what is the kind of rush at that center. So, let's see what the user journey for our case should be. So go with one point, one activity per person. You can just say what will happen when someone comes in. So where should we start for the user? If you have to go to get vaccination, where will you start? Okay. Even before that. Where is everyone?
The journey should be in the space, or it should begin from where we are going to start.
From wherever you're gonna start.
Like from our houses, that point, when we are there.
Yeah. So when we look at specific users, we have to complete their journey, right? So when we are looking at a person who's going to receive the vaccination, we have to look at the complete journey. It might not have anything to do with space. So yeah, the first point is going to be leaving house. Okay. Leaving the house, the person drives to a center, and then you start the center specific journey. So what will happen when they reach the center? Or what should happen? You don't benchmark the current system at all. Think of a very efficient system that you want to create, and from there you can start making the space as well.
Maybe they can start with sanitization of everything.
Okay, fair point. I think I'll make a small slide for people so that everyone is on the same page. So here we have stakeholders, right, and we will have their activities. And say it's citizens, right? So in the beginning, when you're listing all your users of the space, you should keep them separate. I mean, we could have gone with thinking that doctors and nurses can be bracketed. We can't combine them until we have made their journey and looked into how the journey is, right? It's only after analyzing that we can say, okay, they fall into one bracket or they don't. Staff basically will your admin, and those people are your staff. Housekeeping is very important here. Do you think there could be any other user apart from these? Are we missing anything? Five other users. Okay.
If we need any security,
Yeah, security could be one. Anyone else? So I think one more user that we should have is a paramedic, who is basically going to get the patient to the hospital, maybe driving the ambulance, that team. So that's another stakeholder. They have a different journey altogether. So see, we have 7 stakeholders under our current observation, and what we have to do is we have to figure out what everyone's routine is like. What kind of interactions they come together, and how do they do it. So we won't be detailing out this entirely like for all the 7, but let's do it for one. Okay, so at least, or maybe 2, we will do it for citizens and doctors, and then we'll proceed. Okay, so citizens, we've already started. These people will leave their home, they will travel to the center. What happens at the center? So any just give me a brief of the activities they will be involved in. If I'm going to the center to get vaccinated, anyone knows here what will happen, what happens in the center when you're going for vaccination? Or what do you do before vaccination? Do you register? Are you invited, or what? How does the system work?
I
I'm
guess
not sure, maybe, yeah.
I guess there are online registrations, so maybe they have to show the registration number or something like that.
Right. So what does that mean? Is there anything that you can draw from that? That if you're taking a registration to a place like that, what will happen? It's basically an appointment, right? So what happens when you go for an appointment to a doctor?
You need a reception area and a waiting area.
Yeah, someone has to be there to analyze your appointment, especially in case of vaccination. And you would be put in a queue most probably, right? There could be other people. So that happens when you go to the appointment to a doctor as well. So that means that you need an area where you can wait, right? So this person goes from home to the center. There he goes further to the reception. So in reception area, you can further list the activities. What do they do? They would confirm your appointment. They could ask you to wait. They could take you to the vaccination point. So that is one. That is how you basically figure out what are the possibilities under each case, right? So that's fine. You go to the reception. So the reception person has to do some work here, right? So this gets us to the second tree of the activity that has to happen. So now the person at the reception probably has to check your receipt. They would have probably they might have a system given for that. They might have a computer kept for that, or they might be checking it on their phone. Maybe something should be there, right? And in exchange, you need a system where they are either giving you a token or they're giving you a number. So now the reception person should have that area where they are able to take up a certain number of people, right? So it definitely can't be just one person sitting there and scheduling all this for the vaccination center. So then that number should have a dependency and the infrastructure will vary according to that. So this person has to sit there for long hours. So even if it, so tell me one thing, what for vaccination center, what do you think? Should it be an open area or a closed area? Anyone? Should be
Partly open,
partly.
where you could breathe, where you're waiting, and when you have nothing to do, at least you have something going around. You can look around.
Okay. So anyone knows how much waiting time people have to go through in the centers these days?
Maybe a couple of hours,
Couple of?
hours maybe. Or maybe these days they don't even get the vaccine, so maybe it could be days also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a system we will probably never design for. But we will, you can keep in mind that there are delays sometimes, and that is definitely something to keep in mind. For example, if you go to the airports, you will see that they have kept in mind there could be flight delays, or there could be at least 3-4 hours to catch a flight, and you have those big lounges there that you can just sleep on. And that's just because of their insight of how people are experiencing and what they might need. So yeah, you have that capability here, but the thing is that do you want would you want to minimize their touch points when they're going to vaccination center, or would you want to maximize them? So guys, touch points are basically I mean, the definition is basically touch point is like how many contact points do we have when we are accessing a service. For example, if you're going to a mall, cashier is one of the touch points. Let's start from the beginning. So when you go to the mall, parking slip is one of your touch points, and getting into the lift is one of your touch points. Then if you're going through the security, that is one of the touch points. These are touch points are basically points where you get in contact with the service in one or the other way, right? Anything which is from the other side is a touch point of the service, right? So in this case, what touch point I'm talking about is basically, resting after registration. And the thing is that during COVID, you would not want to touch anything, right? So it becomes even a bigger challenge of how to manage people when you're not even allowed to touch anything, right? So there could be many ways, and I really want to hear something now from someone. What would you do after this? So you've reached the reception area. What happens then? So I'll just give you an idea of how the vaccination is happening right now. So you know that, right? If you have to assume anything right now. So what people do is they register on the CoWIN app, and then they go to the center which they have chosen. Their waiting period in small cities where vaccination is there is about 45 minutes to 1 hour. And I mean that much time is how much it takes for you to get in and get out. So 45 minutes to 1 hour is the time you are going to spend there. Okay. On an average. For certain places that could be higher or even lower, right? So you go to the registration, you get it checked, you get your registration check, get your appointment check. They will take you to after waiting, you go to the place where vaccination is being administered. They take out a new vaccine bottle and a new syringe, and they administer it. They put that away, and your status is updated, right? That I don't know if your status is updated right then or not, but because a lot of things are not really happening online. So I don't know how much updating they are doing real time, but that probably they might be doing at the end of the day or something like that. So your data is basically updated, and then you have to go out. So the second user, basically you get in contact with the other person who's administering the vaccine to you. These are going to be the nurses or the doctors. What do you think? Who's going to administer? Because nurses are the people who are given that work, because doctors are supposed to look after the patients mostly. They're not there to, take care of the injection. So nurses are the ones who will take care of that, and then you are to exit the vaccination center. Okay. So now let's look at the other side. The doctors are not there at the point where vaccination is being administered. They are in the hospital doing their work. So nurses are there, right? So nurses have to come into the vaccination center. They might have shifts. So let's look at a busy center. Let's say Nagpur has to have a 24-hour center for vaccination. Okay. And that is when we have enough vaccinations in the country. But let's say Nagpur has to have a 24-hour vaccination center, and we want to make it work that 24 hours people are being given vaccinations properly, right? So now you have to figure out, nurses will also keep changing in shifts. There's a certain limit to how much activity you can get out of one person. So nurses will have shifts in that case, and people will be queuing up in outside. So you have to limit that and also attend to that. So looking at this, what do you think should be the idea to, what are the means by which you can eliminate the contact in a space? So, just draw something. Let's start with drawing something on the pages. So consider your page to be this rectangle, right? You have it. And you have this person A and person B, which is your nurse. And this person is your citizen. And this person is here for getting his vaccination, and the nurse is here. So now this is the whole area, right? It can't be just an open area, because you need to have multiple people to get your system going, right? And these are also going to be multiple people here who are going to attend to you. So work out on a basic layout that you think can work in this scenario. And as an insight, you know, put these people in places like where will the reception be, and where should be, and I don't want you to limit yourself to a rectangle. You can use a circle if you want to. You can use any shape, right? But just I'm just putting a representation of the paper. If you have an A4 paper, just try to uh, imagine how this system will work, the system that we have just talked about. Not supposed to spend more than 5 minutes. That's the max. It's a very rapid thing. Anyone has any question? Himani, Ashwini, Michi, Nupur, Akshat.
Do we have to include the person who will be administrating the reception area and the doctors also?
No, doctors are not here, right? So we only have nurses who are administering the vaccination. So
And the reception area?
yeah, reception area is important.
Okay.
Have the reception area, right? And then people are going to be waiting. So there's going to be waiting area as well. If you have any other insight to, have another, there is another possible point where people are going to be there, you can add that. But we are following a generic approach here. So your work is to basically just map out a plan, and there are two things you can do with the plan now. Either you can think of how people should move in this space. This is basically your how, or you can plan out the space and segregate, which is basically going to guide how basically people should move. So you can start with either of these approaches. I mean, plan a layout. So if you guys, so if you're making a layout, what you have to do is after making it, just click a picture and upload to that document, the link that I had shared, so that everyone can see it and we can also discuss things.
Should we give them some time, like a fixed time to do it?
Yeah. Do it. Can you do it by 12:20? Is everyone okay with that?
Guys, can you plan a layout in 5 minutes?
10 minutes would be fine, I guess, because it's already 12:17.
8 minutes.
8 minutes, okay. 12:25, okay.
Is anyone done? Guys, it's time to share. Come on, we have a long way to go.
Are you guys ready with your designs?
Guys, keep things very rough, like fast scribbles. You don't need to have a very perfect layout right up right. Guys, 10 minutes are up. So start uploading whatever is done. Just upload it on this doc. You continue it from there.
It's not a strict submission. It's okay. However it is, please start uploading.
There are no grades.
Yeah.
One is going to get a
It's just a general discussion. Whatever it is, just upload it.
brainstorming sessions. You should not take more than 1 minute. Yeah. 10. First thing that comes to your mind should be on the paper.
Just click a picture and paste it in the document.
Yeah.
Come on, Nupur, Kunal.
It can be a rough allotment. It doesn't have to be any like a strict layout. Circle.
Nupur, Nupur seems to be uploading the document.
We should get at least how many are there? 7 are there. No? So his idea in the first place is just to allot, a space. We usually use like a broader circles to show that it doesn't have to be like proper layout. You just allot a certain flow. Who else is uploading? Guys, who else is uploading? Anyone else?
Is anyone uploading?
While you're uploading, you have to go back to your.
Can I, Akshat is like, can I share my screen?
Yeah, you should be able to. I have to stop it. Akshat, can you share your screen then? Are you able to see the option? Okay, so Akshat has shared his layout. Okay. So guys, we have two layouts. One is there which is shared by Akshat. There's another one on the screen. If everyone has their documents open, they can check that. The document has another layout there. Everyone, can you write your names also so we know who is who? Just write your names along with the on the pages where you have pasted your layouts. Okay. So we have the basically three layouts now. So can you just everyone just go to the document and so put a score as to what you think is the more relevant of them all. What can work the okay. So for Akshat, you are seeing his layout on. He has shared his layout in Zoom. So you have to see there, but you can just put a score in this document, right? So you have another only 1 minute each. Okay. So just look through, and within 2 minutes, just put down your comments or just type it there. Guys, please put your names along. Okay. I think you're not able to put your names. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put this comment here. So you can just keep commenting under the comments. Okay. There are comments on the sheet. You can just look into those comments and you can just reply to that. All of you can reply to that as a score. Just score it. So the way you have to score it is that you basically have with you 10 points that you have to distribute among these people. Okay. So the total has to be 10. You don't give 5 out of 10, not 9 out of 10. No, not like that. You have 10 coins and you can only give a total of 10 coins overall. Okay. So you can give a maximum to someone. If you're giving 5 coins to someone, only 5 are left with you to give to the other 2. Okay. So that is how you have to score. So we have 70 coins. Okay. 70 or 80 coins we have in total right now. So you will start giving out coins. Just so there are comments on the folder. If there's any problem, just ask us directly here.
Akshat, are you able to upload this layout on that document?
No
Then
मैम नहीं हो
everyone
रहा है वो
can. नहीं हो रहा है?
इसलिए
Wait, should I try? Can you send your file in this chat box? Let's see if I can upload it for you, so that everyone refers the same document.
yes
Why did the others not make a layout, or you don't want to upload the layout? Guys, very important to be participative in design process.
It's just an exercise, just your understanding, and there is nothing more or less to it.
Yeah, so these exercises are specially made for us to know how quickly we can fail. Because if I am spending 10 minutes on something which I can do in 5, then I can make 2 of those things in 10 minutes, right? And when you're actually doing things professionally, time is everything. So it's just basically trying to think loud and fast and together. So the point is that in 5 minutes, whatever you can get, just put it on and then see what others have done and keep learning from each other, right? So we have, so guys, can you comment, please? If you're not able, I'll just share the screen and tell you how to comment on that. How many of you are on mobile and how many are actually on their PCs? I opened too many screens. So,
Do we have any more submissions?
I think everyone is done. I'm just going to share the screen. Yeah. So as if you can see the screen, there are the names which are there as comments. Just go to the comments and you can reply on these. Mine is showing as edit, but you should be able to reply to this. So you can just put your coins there. So you have basically 10 points that you're distributing. So you can put your points. So this is to know how other people see your idea. Okay, it's just a quick method to see how people see your idea. And then it is basically if someone is getting low points, they can ask others for insights. Someone who's getting high points, they can ask people as to, what did you like most in this and what did you not like, and do you have possibilities of improvement from the users themselves, right? So the idea of UX is not to work in isolation but to work with others and also the users. So there is a point where you will also have to sit with the users and try to do it and with them. Basically how McDonald's did it, they wanted to achieve speed, but for us in this situation it could be that we want to achieve maximum safety for everyone who's part of this space, right? So in a vaccination drive, of course the principles that we want to the goals that we want to achieve will not be of what McDonald's wanted to achieve, and that will definitely change. So our goals are very different. We want to achieve safely, safe vaccination drive, and we also want to minimize the waiting time. So both go hand in hand. And I think a lot of people might have this question as to, that a lot of things in India as a developing country, they happen out of a jugaad. Like there is already a space in hospital and that will be allotted to uh, be converted into a vaccination center. So why do we plan all this, or why do we, try to make it from scratch? And well, that is a very valid point. And but that what that does is that you will always be working within limitation, and you will limit your mind as well. And that has happened with me a lot of times when I am working with some clients who are not ready to explore, and then you suddenly come across a client who is ready to explore, and then you don't know how to do it because you've not done it before, or because that is how probably the Indian market is. So you constantly need to be in a situation where you are looking at new things and observing new things and creating new things. So what will happen when you create a blueprint like this is that it can serve as a guideline for others. Now when WHO makes a guideline, it takes all the experts and tries to work around with them. They take stakeholders in place and they make a blueprint that you can follow this to ensure certain things, right? So you can do the same. I mean, they are not doing a rocket science to give guidelines as to how to make something. If you read their guidelines, that be it on housing, be it on food, be it on any other specific things, these are very simple design principles being followed and being tested, right? So when I said in the early on that a guideline should not be a benchmark because you can be better than some guidelines, and in design that is always possible. So here, when you make a overall map that, this is the preferred way of conducting the drive, then all the centers don't have to think. In India, what happens is like the head there will start putting his mind, the people on the ground will start putting their mind. It'll be half chaos, half things done, half not done. And then guidelines will come and some will change things, some will not understand how to do it. So for us, it is very important that being in India, we are able to cater and design for our systems, because we are not US or Europe where things happen in a certain way. People are specifically invited to design amazing projects. And governments don't really invite here like that. I mean, how many invitations have been sent out for creating a great hospital? They do it for probably statues or whatever. We've not evolved it, but that comes to us as space design and architects, or as designers, any designers, like, to solve problems, and we have a lot of problems. So starting from scratch is the first thing to do in any process. So here currently we have, where do we have reached? I don't think people are okay to give points. Very shy, I guess. So never mind. We will go without the points. So this is Nupur's layout. She said this is the vaccination area, this is the waiting area. She's separating it here. And this is a sanitization area, this is the reception area. So you first sanitize, then you go to the reception, then you go to the waiting area, and then the vaccination, right? So this layout shows two chambers. There's one sanitization. This is basically the staff area. There are toilets here, and there's a sanitization chamber for citizens, and separate one for staff. So there is a segregation between staff, how the staff is moving and how the citizens are moving. Then they go for registrations, then they go to the waiting area, then there are vaccination chambers. And waiting for citizens this area is something either redundant or who has made this? Guys.
Sorry, this layout is by me.
Oh. Okay, so you made another area of waiting for citizens. Why so?
Yeah, because I had heard that after the vaccination, they make citizens wait for half an hour to see if the medicine is not reacting on them. So I've also heard in the news that, because they don't have enough waiting areas, they're asking people to wait in their cars for half an hour if there are no side effects, and then they can go.
Right. Okay, great. Well, she could have made cars there, but well, that's the way people will work around. So yes, there's no waiting area for people, so they will definitely go around. And it's not safe to sit anywhere also, so it's very critical. See, that's so we have only two here, and the third one was Akshat's. Did you upload it? Were you able to?
I don't think he managed to upload a layout.
Oh yeah, he's not there on chat. Okay. Should take another snapshot. Okay. So guys, this is our idea that we have captured from looking into journey of one user, right? And so let's go back and let's look at what is needed for our other users. Right. So these are the other user that we are looking at is basically the nurses, and they have a journey. They could have special considerations, right? So their journey is something like they come from home, they have to sanitize, they enter the center, they're working, and before going home, they have to sanitize. While they're working, they have a certain journey where there will be a break. While they're working, they have a they have activities such as, opening the vaccinations, loading the syringe, administering the vaccination, and guiding the person there for a few things that might be there. So when we are talking about the waiting area where people are waiting, there is a space for help desk or something like that, right? There are toilets required when you have a waiting time of more than maybe 1 hour at least. So see, the journey of the nurses is like that, which is a little different, which is somewhat similar to people, but considering that they are exposed longer to other people and they are interacting with a lot of people, their safety becomes a very thin line, right? So sanitization becomes very important, and their PPE kits and all become very important. So when they have to take a break or relax, so the service has to be designed in a way that either they work without a break, and when the break happens, they're done for the day, right? They don't have to wear the clothes again or enter the premises again, something like that. And they because they have to dispose of the whole PPE kit, and they have to change, they have to sanitize, they will need a facility where they can do that. And we can't just replace it with toilets, because people will need toilets otherwise. So now from another user point of view, we know that there is a requirement for another space which is helpful for these people to do their work, right? The further case which we were looking at was when the waiting area, basically for the people when they have to wait to check on um, any reactions from the vaccine, right? A half an hour waiting area, that's waiting time which is there. So how can we basically structure that, and how do you structure? Are there some guidelines that you would have for people who are waiting there? Do they need to be seated in a close proximity, further proximity? How to use a particular area to do that? So now we know that a basic layout we have done from one user point of view, who is the person who's going to get the vaccine. The second is going to be the nurses. So gradually going from one user to the other and covering all the users, we will be able to figure out as to what are our relevant use cases and what kind of space do they need to do their work efficiently. And then we can, there might be conflicts that is bound to happen, right? Because there is going to be limitation of space and there is going to be other limitations, and you might have to actually design for a place where there are hardly any resources. So you just have to do what's best. Don't ever worry about what's what could have happened. That is not the problem there. What is best for people, what is best for these people who are running it, just go for that. And I think now we know that if we are looking at nurses, they will need another room. So your plan should have one more place like that. How to attach it to the main system. And so there is one more user, that is the staff. So the staff is supposed to bring vaccinations to the nurses, and when the lot is over, they have to issue new vaccine boxes, right? So these people usually with viruses, when we are designing for viruses like that, or any medical terms, any medical systems, hospitals, let's say, in highly infectious areas, we want as many people out of a certain area as much as possible, right? So there are these checks, or what we called as a biosphere, which was made for recently. You might have heard with the cricket IPL, they created some guidelines for these cricketers to stay in a biosphere where they're not supposed to meet anyone, not go out of a certain area, etc., etc. So that is to minimize the interaction. So we want to minimize the interaction with the staff because well, vaccination area is going to be flooded with people constantly coming and going. There are going to be a lot of people who touch here and there. So a lot of touch points like that for further, infesting of the virus. Another user which is of concern is the housekeeping. How do you basically go about creating a system where housekeeping can go on in such a situation? So where do you keep that mop and everything, all the dusters, whatever material you're using for housekeeping in that area? Where are you going to store it? How do you make sure it's not just lying there in the open somewhere and it is secure and people know where it is, right? So these are small things. It could be a 2x2 section of on a side, even a temporary thing where things are kept in an organized manner. And this housekeeping could also require special materials for sanitizing the whole unit properly, right? So those are particular needs when we are working for a functional space. And this is a very highly functional space that we are discussing today. And in this case, you can't leave anything unturned, or you can't just let it be a simple room and things let things flow like that. Okay, so sixth is security and seventh is paramedic. Paramedic is probably not our user case because they are mostly going to go to the emergency. So in our case, people are mostly going to come by themselves. So paramedic is not the user case there. So what happens, what happens when we look at these layouts or when we are making plans, and why make plans? Like people, I know you will be fascinated by how things look, and it is bound to happen when we look at anything. When we think of a space, we start imagining how it should look like and how should it, what should go where, what kind of light should be there, etc., etc. Well, that's very important, and that's what we are going to discuss on the second step. Once you're done with the layout, now this is very basic layout, right? That we have done, and we have not worked on a structural approach, or we have not worked on any other layout. We have worked on a very rectangular layout. So now we know that the area is there, but could there be a circular layout? Could there be a layout where people can flow in a different manner and be saved from crossing any paths twice or crossing each other as well, right? So if you look at, I think one of the best examples you can look at would be any airport which you took minimum time from the gate to the boarding gate, from the entry gate to the boarding. I think one of them for me is Hyderabad, and being the airport it is and handling so many passengers, I think the least time I've experienced that way has been in Hyderabad with those kind of people, with those numbers of people. And probably the worst is Delhi. So there is definitely a lot of work gone into it. They've tried to minimize a lot of things, and of course there are there are limitations on how many people you want to handle, how many flights you are flying every day. So those will change. But yes, experience is experience. I don't feel great when I cross Delhi, or if I have to get out of Delhi, get in. So, but on the same hand, I know that there is a relative better airport who is handling it much better. So research, when we're talking about research as the first part, there will be reports and guidelines already issued. You can refer to that for speeding up your system. For example, guidelines should not be your not just benchmark, but should not be going by the book. You should not just look at guidelines to go by the book. You can have, as we were talking, that you can have a circular approach to this layout for vaccinations, and you could still have the guidelines in place. So guidelines are basically the rules you want to follow, but yeah, the shape doesn't matter there. How people move is important, as we have already seen in McDonald's story. That is one of the very popular stories, so it is bound to have impact. But if you look at your everyday life, you have that movement happening in your kitchen. If you have worked in your kitchen, you would realize how important is that movement. If you have a slightly larger kitchen, that becomes even more important because you have to go in here and there and do things. So you will see there is it is a very popular rule which you might also know, which is of a triangle of workplaces, that there is a triangle where you define your workplace within, and there are 3 touch points you usually design for. So yeah, how people move is very important in spaces, and you can start thinking about a space from that perspective, right? Who are we designing for? The users, yes, the users we are designing for, and also the stakeholders. So there was I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I came across a room which was so this room is basically a reception, not a reception room. It's like a manager's room. So the manager's room has a big window, and at least at the time I was looking at it, there was a lot of light outside, mostly from the sun. So even if the door was open, I could not make out who was sitting in it because I was only seeing silhouettes. And at that time, it struck me that it's such a nice way to conceal who is talking to who. Like, you don't see faces, right? But it might not be intentional, but it was there. I could see that I can't make out who's sitting and who's talking and what they might be talking. So it's like, it's basically just privacy happening through design in a way, through light. So who are we designing for could be that factor, where you can include these things and your observations in your area. And I could tell this to one of my friend who wants things in his office to be really royal or something like that, and he wants to use this kind of an approach, and I would be happy to do it. Imagine there is a office with a view, but anyone who tries to look at it, they only see shadows or they only see silhouettes. They can never make out who's sitting in that room. And that's amazing, right? There is an activity, there is a sense of high privacy about that room. And now you see the room is creating a sense of privacy. It's also creating a sense of unknown, like you don't know anything. It's something secrecy, right? So these are the keywords that start coming to your human mind, and you can't exit them. So what leads to everything when we start designing for user is the semantics. That is where you can bridge things. So, and that is where where the interior design capabilities come in. So the space is designed well, right? That is the foundation. And then over that, how do you put in semantics? How do you make the place calm for someone? So if you have to drive, if you are making that vaccination center, what would you want the people to feel, right? That is where you're going to put the interiors part, right? And now the problem with that is that if you don't work on the foundation of the space design, then their experience might not be great. And what you want to solve with interiors by giving them maybe a calm feel, maybe a feeling of well-being, or instilling a certain feeling or a positive feeling in them, your foundation, which is the space plan, might ruin it for you. And a lot of services make that mistake. And you would see, now that we've discussed this today, you might start seeing that more often around you in public spaces. And you will realize that even if something is made beautiful, that basis of the planning is not reached that level to exaggerate that feeling for you, and you feel like man, it's there, it's not there, it's there, it's not there, kind of a feeling. You're in the mid, and that's because the foundation is not that great. So semantics is what is the word that will come after the space planning happens. And here we stick to our keywords as to how do I want the person to feel, but the experience you can't really define it, right? You can, for a service you can make it easier, for a lounge you can make it you can say it should be, people should feel at leisure, feel, people should, maybe pleasure could be one keyword in a lounge, or um, at a very niche space. So your keywords should decide what kind of people you're designing for, and it's vice versa, right? If your keywords, if you decide that you want to make a very luxurious space for a certain people, when who the people who you are designing for, and it does not match, then you should definitely question as to why you're doing it, right? If if you have a good answer for a why, great, you should do it. If you're not able to make up your mind, it's time to reflect on that, and maybe talk to more users, validate your ideas, and then carry out the execution, right? Because once the execution is done, it's a lot of money gone, right? A 3D model is definitely easier to manipulate, and well, so I hope that you understood the experience part we were talking about, and it's very wide to start with, and I don't expect that it's you can just understand it with one exercise. But this is the process, right? The more you practice the process, the more intricacies will come out, the more challenges will come out, and as you keep solving them, you will see that you are able to get at a point where you might be looking at people worldwide creating an impact they have reached, or someone you've read about, they have done something similar. And there is no shortcut in this, because it's your learning. Like, if I have to evolve in this process, I have to spend a certain time, and there is no shortcut to it. The only thing that you can do within that time, for example, if I keep working every day on this process, it might take me 3 years at least to absorb this completely. So when I start absorbing this, I could look beyond after that, right? When like, I read a lot about design thinking during my college. I read about a lot of design methods, and now design for me is just one field. I feel like it's one field which combines human creativity to the products that they use, the spaces that they live in, and what they experience. And every designer has that capability to turn things likewise, right? So, but it is just that I had the motivation, and just could not leave anything undone. So now when I see a lot of design words and buzzwords coming out, and I start reading about them, I don't feel anything that there's something different. They're just a design process being used for service design and being called service design, right? It is they're using, say, the design process to design a service. Basically, what we have done today is partially we have looked into how a service will work, and we have tried to make a space which will make the service efficient, right? Efficient and uh, safe in this case. So when we are looking at the delight factor here, which is for me, it comes towards the end. Like, I can at least think about it when I am very much done with the functional bit. So after starting with the functional bit, when I start thinking about the delight bit, that is where I see, you can, in medical terms, for a medical system, the delight could be having, knowing that you are safe in that environment. At the same time, delight will also be for being in a hospital where I can see outside and I can find trees. And in fact, one of the researchers, I think it's done in UK again, they they compared patients who have a view of trees outside and people who have a view of a wall outside. So the people who have a view of the wall still have some plants and all, but the other people can actually see a park and few trees there. And they started looking at how their brains reacted, and they found that the people who are looking at outside and with a view and finding out trees and looking at people, they're definitely more similar. So one part of the whole thing is basically that you understand your mind. The more you understand your mind, the more you understand how others' mind works. And there are a lot of decisions which are actually taken in our subconscious brains, right? And what we are doing by functionally designing is that we are uh, first designing for the needs that the system needs, right? So that we don't miss on that. And when we go to the delight factor, we start designing for the subconscious as well. That is where all your studies and all your research, new research, the more you're updated, the more you can experiment, that will come in handy, right? So the point is, you have to find your own process from here, right? The starting point is working with the users, and you will hear this that UX is highly rate. UX is still not explored as much as it should be in how I see it. There might be a lot of colleges offering UX courses and people doing product design, UX design, but there's a whole lot of UX which is basically beyond the screens. Currently, most of the UX jobs are into apps and softwares, but that's just like the tip of the iceberg. The UX processes, if you think about read about the UX process and just think about how will I, if we just start thinking and wondering how will I apply this in a mall, or how will I apply this in a shopping center, how will I apply this in a hospital, etc., etc., you will see that the possibilities that do not stop. You can apply that method and solve a lot of problems in different environments and different spaces. So space, of course, I think you are all are studying space or you are somehow connected to it. So I wanted to share with you on how UX in spaces is important and how you can approach it. And wanted to give you a very short, brief, approach towards it. So this workshop is about that, and I'm gonna tell you one more thing uh, before I leave. If you are a new learner and if you are, you want to create an impact, don't give up if something is not working for you right now, and do not stop thinking or evolving your process. And the more work you do, the more you learn about design psychology and sociology in general, the more impact you will be able to make someday, right? uh, and none of us can really change the world, but we have this innate desire to do something that my brain is thinking of, right? So I think that we should all achieve. If you are imagining something for you and you really believe that you can do something, that one chance you should give yourself by putting all the energy you can. So that if you want to design the best building in the world, the most sustainable village or the most sustainable urban layout, right, just go for it, just do it. And if you think you lack in something today, but what you need to do is you need to keep learning until you reach that point. Because always know this, that if you are able to see something, it's not that everyone can see that. So always have that uniqueness about what you are observing. And if you think you are able to make an impact, it just count it that yes, you are the one who has to do it. It is your responsibility. If you are able to see something, if you are able to perceive something, you should do something about it, and you definitely should not stop at any point, right? So before we end it, I want you all to look into one more challenge about yourself. And while we are all staying at home and it's COVID has become a big challenge for us, so start, just use this method that we have discussed today, and just take your home as the use case. Okay, and that's easiest because it's accessible. You will get to know how people respond to interventions and how difficult it could be to change behavior. So design your home to be COVID proof. look at how you can make some space changes, how you can alter a few things in the space to achieve this. And I'm sure that if you give it a proper thought, you can do it. And just to start it off, you can have your user cases like people who are visiting you, people who are living in the house, people who might be stepping out every day, like that. You can distribute the user cases and start thinking of, what are these people doing every day, and what do they need to stay away from COVID as much as possible, right? And well, maybe you can help. That's the most help you can give your family and friends in this time. That's all from me, and I am open for any questions and any queries on this. And I'm sure there should be doubts. So yes, please.
When we talk about user experience and when we have to implement it in a space, most of the time it gets difficult to think of both at the same time. There are certain limitations. Like I'm still studying. I'm in third year of interior design. So there are so many restrictions as to how we have to design a space. So bringing in most of the time bringing in the experience is not more concerned upon. So how do we start like where do we start with? Like, should we first start with designing a space according to its functionality, or should we start with what experience it should get and then bring in the functionality of the space?
See, in any functional environment, people use this principle as to form follows function, right? And you can do that for non-functional spaces also, because spaces are built for function. And if you start with the function part, you will mostly be able to solve it. And when you think about creating a certain experience in that space, of course you'll have to iterate a little bit on and off the function. But yes, the function has to be the fundamental. For example, if we are just talking about a bedroom, I want there is one bedroom and one let's say washroom and one kitchen in a small apartment. Now this guy wants his bedroom to be the party place also, right? So how would you do it? Like, you can't escape the fundamental part that it's going to be a bedroom. But whatever there it whatever rest, the brief is, there is an add-on. So first you have to think of how to make a bedroom, how much space does he need to sleep, where is he going to have his storage, etc., etc. And then you're going to think, okay, now he wants a party, so how do I make a party? Like, what is the best way I can make this a party place? So what you can do is you can go towards both the concepts separately and then try to merge them, right? That is one way you can do it. That take best of both and then sort of merge them. So that is up to you how you are segregating that in the mind. And that takes time. That is okay. If you think that it's getting difficult, it takes time to segregate that. And it's okay if you're not achieving 100% on both the sides, because that's not possible. Someone could actually love sleeping and he is more concerned about his sleep than partying. So it depends on the user. Some users might be like, okay, any couch, anything in the house is okay for them, but they want like a party place. That's just crazy. So yeah, you have to figure that out, and never forget that how humans are designed to live, because that is also another fundamental which as an interior or architect you have to look at. And there are certain limitations that humans have. I mean, if you don't give light, natural light in a house, and I mean, it just looks sad. And I have experienced that firsthand. And if you go to different houses, you have just start observing this. What do you feel? Like, the first thing that you feel when you enter someone's house, And when you do that for different houses, what are you feeling and why could that be? Just the first thing that you feel. So when you start observing those things, that is when basically you're observing your mind and how it's reacting, and that's the best way to know how others' minds will also react. Was that helpful?
Yes, that seems to work.
More questions? How many people tried to explore UX till now? How many people have plans to jump into UX after doing your design degree in interiors or so?
I have an interest, like I want to explore that field to make my to uh, I think that would be helpful in interior as well and more designing fields. So I would like to explore UX.
Yeah, definitely. I think anyone who is currently studying design, they should read about UX. They should read about um, well, I think you cover a lot of things common with product design, but yeah, UX you should read about definitely, and also psychology. I think that never goes away in design. It's very close. It's like a design is like a functional part of anything which is there in psychology. You can say
Is
that all
psychology, sorry, is psychology a part of UX course?
psychology is not part of UX courses, but it's there in all the courses somehow. So UX courses are basically when you look at UX courses, they are also designed in different ways. And one of the approaches to design the courses for digital products, right? The other is designing the courses for behavioral impact. And when we talk about behavior in UX, it is related to psychology there. So in those courses, you will get to know applied psychology, but not in detail, not as such. I think that's a good part about it because I think people, there are a lot of academicians who have studied a lot, but then applied is the way to go ahead, where you can actually put things to use.
Thank you.
Okay.
That answers my question.
Any other questions, guys? No questions? Well, you can, document is open. If you have any queries, you can just ping me there. And well, if you feel that you need to know something about UX or explore design in a certain way, you can definitely shoot an email and discuss what you're doing. And if you want some feedback, definitely anytime. Okay.
Even if you want to make a design, and I'm sure you can upload that also on the document.
Yeah.
So
Document is going to stay open for a while. And when if you're doing something with your home, and if you look at you followed the approach with the users and trying to make space arrangements according to the insights, you should definitely share that so that everyone can see that. Okay, then I think
thank you, Manik. Thank
have-
you so much for being a part and giving. And it was a very informative session, and we learned a lot about UX in the session. And firstly, the first, like, it was very important because you made us take this experience. We did it like a very first hand thing, like where we like made a layout and thought. So you gave us some stimulation to our brains, because in this lockdown we've just been wondering what to do, but there's no stimulation as such. But thank you so much.
I'm totally honored to be here. I think it's an amazing venture to talk to people about it and have more awareness about what true UX is and where it expands to. And I think usually I do this exercise at least in 3 hours or so, and plus 3 hours plus, so we could only do one of the exercises. We could not build on that. But I think even if you follow anyone who follows the approach will sort of get there. So yeah, thank you to Khushbu to invite me here, and hope she also liked the session. And well, keep learning, guys. There's another workshop tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So everyone should definitely attend that as well. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye.